The radical. Fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody, welcome to Yaron Brook Show on this Thursday, December 4th. I hope everybody's having a great week so far, and weekend is just around the corner. All right, so let's see. No real announcements. I don't have any real announcements today. We will. I'll see you tomorrow, and on Saturday we'll have a show. Probably both will be at this time, 2 p.m. East Coast time. All right, let's just jump in. I mean, we're going to return to a topic that we keep returning to, and I expect us to keep returning to this topic because it just keeps being out there and keeps being emphasized, and it's a topic on which the left and the right agree. It's one of those topics that the populist left and the populist right all agree about, and that is this idea that things just suck today. Matt Walsh just had a tweet. Just today, this morning, just had a tweet that reflects some of this in more broad terms, and then there's the whole economist thing about how you can't afford anything today, and you could afford more in the past, and we'll go over some of that in a minute. But here's Matt Walsh's tweet representing the right, but this is I think this is feelings that you get from the left as well. This could be Elizabeth Warren writing this. This could be pretty much anybody writing this. Here's Matt Walsh. It's an empirical fact that basically everything in our day-to-day lives has gotten worse over time, over the years. The quality of everything, food, clothing, entertainment, air travel, roads, traffic, infrastructure, housing, etc., has declined in observable ways. Even newer inventions, search engines, social media, smartphones have gone downhill. Downhill drastically, not a little bit, drastically. This isn't a random old man yells at clouds complaint. It's true. It's happening. The decline can be measured. Everyone sees it. Everyone feels it. Meanwhile, political pundits and podcast hosts, speaking of things that are getting worse, focus on anything and everything except these practical, real problems that actually affect our quality of life. It's true that pretty much everything that the government touches has gotten worse over the years, or is getting worse to some extent or another. But none of this is really true. There are a few things that are getting worse that impact all of us. Education, getting worse. Air traffic control, getting worse. Air travel, is it getting worse? Maybe, but it's also getting cheaper, and people are doing it. If you just follow, how much people do something, you assume that it's because it's better or better for them within the context of their lives and their abilities. People travel 100x what they used to. Like the golden age in the 1970s, you used to dress up in a suit and tie and go to the airport, and most people didn't fly. Like an American vacation. What was an American vacation like in the 1970s? It was you got a camper, and you got in a car and you drove. And maybe some of you feel nostalgic to that, and that's great. Good for you. I did those road trips. But today, most Americans get in an airplane and they fly anywhere they want. Americans are traveling more to Europe. They're traveling more to Asia. They're seeing the world. They're traveling more in the United States. They're driving less, flying much, 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 much more. So air travel might be worse. I don't know, space for your knees or whatever. But it's so much cheaper that people are doing it so much more that you have to say that in the context of human life, it is so much better. Food? Really? God. I remember the 1970s. I mean, what, you couldn't go out? There's no way to go out. What kind of options did you have? Fast food and maybe some big chains and maybe an odd here and there Chinese restaurant. But God, think about the plethora of choices you have today. Right? If you're a foodie or even a little bit of a foodie or you just enjoy food, the choices are unbelievable. And you can choose anywhere from fast food, but a wide variety of fast food, much bigger than there was in the 70s, to the fanciest restaurants possible, the celebrity chef, the quality of the food, the healthy orientation of the food. If you're vegan, if you're, a carnivore, whatever you are, whatever type of diet you have, there are specialty restaurants that they go for you. And the same with the supermarket. You go into the supermarket today, I mean, really? You're insane if you think the variety is not so much larger. Now, true, if you only like, quote, American food, flavorless, tasteless, like meat and potatoes, then yeah, now there's flavor in the food, and maybe you view that as a downgrade. And I remember, like the 1970s were TV dinners. Maybe the variety of TV dinners has gone down. Maybe because we're more health conscious and now there are other options, but like microwave dinners and living off of microwave dinners, maybe the quality of those has gone down. I don't know. But oh my God, you can get fruits and vegetables from anywhere in the world all year round. You can get whatever you want. You want a boring meat and potatoes dinner? Yeah, you can get Kobe meat. You can get meat from Japan, where they massage the cows and they drink beer all day. You can get anything you want. Things have gotten worse. Food? You got to be kidding me. Clothing? I mean, this is where it just shows how ignorant this guy is, because he's got such narrow view of what is consumed and what are the possibilities and what are the options, a narrow view of everything. But God, there are more options in terms of clothing today than ever before. You know, maybe the clothes last shorter, but I doubt it. And you can get now specialty clothes for exercise and specialty clothes for yoga and specialty clothes for I don't know what. And people have more clothes than ever because clothes are so cheap. And they're not cheap because they're worse. They're cheap because they're cheap. Because they're made in Bangladesh. And they're made in quantity. And if you look, you go to the mall and you look at some of the options in terms of the kind of variety of clothing and colors and styles. I don't know, never in human history has there been more, better, more choices. Now, I know, right? I mean, the whole point of Matt Walsh, his whole shtick is choice is bad. Options are bad. You should be white, Christian, with a wife at home to make you dinner. Maybe his wife's cooking is not that good and he remembers his mother's cooking and he misses that. And you should have 3 kids, maybe 3.2 if you're really ambitious. A station wagon. Oh God, no station wagons. That's why cars have deteriorated, right? Now he has an SUV. Poor soul. And, no choices. Choices are bad. But in all these realms, there are more choices. Entertainment, I probably agree with him on entertainment. Art is worse. Education is worse. Anything to do with the intellectual side is worse. Anything to do with the material side, much better. Not even close, so much better. Housing? Really? 1960s, the average house an American bought was, I think, under 1,500 square feet. Today, it's over 3,000 square feet. So houses have doubled in size. In the 1950s, many families would live in a house together in order to be able to afford it. Today, we have small households. So not only do we have 3,000 square feet, it's 3,000 square feet without 4 kids. Maybe with only 2, maybe with 0. So square feet per person living in the household has gone through the roof. And the houses are just better. The refrigerators are better. The stoves are better. The microwaves are better. The gas stoves or electric stoves or whatever type of, whatever you call it, I don't know anything about kitchens, is better. All of it is better. I've given you some stats on refrigeration. It's insanity. Now, true, infrastructure maintained by government is probably worse. Traffic is worse because, surprise, surprise, in the 1970s, 50s, 60s, people struggled to have one car. Now they have 2, 3, 4. Every kid has a car. Everybody drives. Yeah, so traffic's gone up because we have more people and everybody has a car. Everybody has a car. And search engines have got worse. Really? Has he tried ChatGPT? Has he tried? You know, what's he talking about? Does he remember Yahoo? Social media is worse? Well, maybe. I don't know. I have no idea. Smartphones are worse? No, they're not. They're better. Much better. Hugely better. Not even in the same ballpark better. Never mind that the very fact that you have a smartphone is a modern phenomenon that's made life better. So it's true. This is not the old man yells at clouds. This is the bigoted, misogynistic, anti-progress, anti-modernity, conservative yelling at the clouds. And he's wrong. He's just wrong on everything. Everything. You know, somebody points out that they can order something at 9 a.m. in the morning and get it shipped to their house by 1 p.m. in the same day. And Matt Walsh's response to that is, yes, you can get your cheap shit quickly, and it's still cheap shit. It's cheap. It's not shit. Maybe he buys shit. I don't buy shit. The stuff I get is mostly good. And you know what? If it's shit, you know what I do? If it arrives and it's shit, what do? I put it back in the box, turn it around, and send it back and get my money back in the mail, which is, God, just a miracle that people will give you your money back. I mean, I grew up in Israel where nobody ever gave you your money back. You bought something, that was it. That was for life. You could never get your money back. Even if it turned out it was something else in the box than you intended, you never got your money back. In America, sometimes you don't even need a receipt and you get your money back. It's just mind-boggling to me how clueless people like Matt Walsh are about the world and how their pessimism, their darkness, their narrow-mindedness sells as much as it does. I mean, Matt Walsh has 3.9 million followers on Twitter, 3.9 million people exposed to his bullshit. It's just untrue. It's unrelated to reality. And what's amazing is pointing out reality, pointing out facts, pointing out, I mean, look what we're doing here. We're podcasting as Matt Walsh does, but I'm doing it live. Live streaming all around the world. And it's instantaneous and the quality is pretty damn good. Video, live. How much does it cost you to listen to Yaron Brook show? Particularly those who don't participate in the super chat and don't go on Patreon. How much does it cost you? Nothing. Nothing. Life hasn't got it better. I mean, Matt Walsh tapes his shows and he puts them up there. I don't know if he does them live. I think he tapes them, puts them up there. How much does it cost him to put them up there? And to get access to the world, literally the world, with his nonsense, with his crap, with his cheap shit. Nada, zero. He's really cheap. I think you might have to buy a subscription to watch Matt Walsh's stuff. Here in the Yaron Brook show, you get it for free. That should make you want to trade value for value. I don't see any super chats yet. Remember, you get to dictate the content with the super chats. You get to ask questions that I then answer. And I know a lot of you are saving up for the big New Year's Eve show. But we gotta keep feeding. We gotta keep running the show until New Year's Eve. It doesn't stop. I should just go on vacation until New Year's Eve. Yeah, I mean, it's just mind-boggling to me. The mentality that this requires to hold this is the mentality of a 1220. Somebody who wants to go back, and somebody is obsessed with negativity and badness. I mean, the car he drives is so much safer than it was in the 1970s or 80s. It is more sophisticated. It's more developed. Again, Matt is relatively young, so maybe he doesn't know all this, and maybe it's also that he doesn't have much experience, right? He probably doesn't get out much. He probably doesn't fly around the world much. He probably doesn't use his phone that much. I don't know. It sure appears that this ignorance is partially based on lack of experience in living, in life. And then you have the economists, like this finance guy who I told you about, who published this essay about how in America today, poverty line is at $140,000. And since then, there's been a lot of back and forth. A lot of people have criticized it, and he's come back, and a lot of people defended him, and it's gone back and forth, and so on. But the myth persists. That basically you cannot. In 1963 or whatever, in this essay, this guy writes, and this is a really good essay today published by Matt Iglesias in his Substack, Slow Boring. And he writes, the guy who wrote the 140,000 guy, Michael Green, he wrote, between 1963 and 2024, everything changed. And that today a family needs 2 incomes to maintain the standard of living that they used to be provided by one. Here's what he wrote. The labor market shifted. The labor model shifted. A second income became mandatory to maintain the standard of living that one income formerly provided. But a second income meant childcare became mandatory, which meant 2 cars became mandatory. Or maybe you'd simply be asking for a lot, generationally speaking, because living near your parents helps to defray those childcare costs. So you can't move because you have to stay near your parents. Now, here's the thing. We need to compare apples to apples. If you want a 1963 lifestyle, if you are willing to live in a 1963 home, and your wife, maybe this is what Matt Walsh does, although Matt Walsh makes millions of dollars, so he probably doesn't. But if you want to live in a 1963 standards, where the wife stays at home and doesn't work, of course, if she doesn't work, no need for childcare, right? Because she can take care of the kids. You don't go out to restaurants because she cooks, right? She's not cooking. And you're willing to live in a house like you could have lived in 1963. So let's say if you went out there and actually bought a house that is about 1,500 square feet, 1,600 square feet. This house posting I see here. This is in Jacksonville. Jacksonville is about the median city in America in terms of costs, in terms of wages. So wages about where the median is, and house prices about where the median is. It's pretty representative. You could rent this house for $2,000 a month, 1,600 square feet. It's got 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, and since you were living a trad life, right? You have 4 kids, so the kids would have to double up in a bedroom. But I doubled up with my brother in a bedroom, and my sisters doubled up in their bedroom, and that's how we lived. We had 1 bathroom in the entire apartment. It was about, 1,200 square feet, maybe 1,400 square feet, the whole apartment, with 4 bedrooms. My dad had an office in the home, parents had a bedroom, and we doubled up in the 2 bedrooms, right? That's how people lived. And we had one bathroom for all 6 of us. 6 people, one bathroom. If you're willing to live like that, there are plenty of homes you can buy for that kind of money. You can rent for $2,000. You can rent a whole home like that. Now, if you're making kind of the median, which is, I don't know, about $80,000 a year, right? If you're in the age group of 35 to 54, which is the peak earning years, and where you have kids, and you're making $80,000 a year, you can buy a home, you can rent a home for $2,000 a month, that kind of home, and your wife can stay home. She doesn't work, and you can have one car, and you can have it all. I mean, no need for childcare. And by the way, this particular house in Jacksonville is in a neighborhood where the school is rated really high, so it's a little bit more expensive probably because school district is good. So the whole thing is really, really stupid. Now, it's true, college tuition has gone up, but, most people didn't go to college in the 1960s. Who said all 4 of your kids need to go to college? Certainly didn't happen in the 60s. We survived. Child care is up, but you don't need child care because your wife is home. Healthcare costs are up. That's true, but, if you have a job, one of you have a job, you're probably getting healthcare through your employer anyway. And, one person having a job, you can get, the employer will pay your healthcare for 6 people. So if you want to live a trad life, you can live a trad life. Here's the problem. Nobody wants to live that life. Nobody wants to live that life. People are ambitious. And in order to achieve their ambitions, not just monetarily, but in terms of fulfillment in life, women go to work. They don't go to work just for the money, because it's true that particularly in the early days, and particularly if you have 4 kids, a lot of that money just goes to pay the child care. But they want to have a job because it's fulfilling. And because, one day the kids will grow up and they continue to have a job. So, women want fulfilling lives. So they go out and work, or they go out and study, they go to school. So they're not at home to take care of the kids and to cook all your meals so you don't have to go to restaurants. And you have a huge number of restaurants in the world right now because people are not cooking at home, and they want to go out. But those are choices. Those are choices that indeed have enhanced human life, particularly if you're a woman, not made it worse. Now, it's true. If you're a trad man, traditional man, and you expect the woman to be in the house cleaning and taking care of the kids and washing and cooking all day, and you don't want your wife to have an education or career or to do anything too interesting, then yeah, life might suck for you. Good. I'm cool with that. I'm cool with people who have Neanderthal attitudes, having unhappy lives. That is not a bad thing. It's actually called, I think it's called justice. Justice. The reality is that people have 2 incomes, not because they need 2 incomes to live the lifestyle of the 1960s. They have 2 incomes because they want to live the lifestyle of somebody in 2025. They want to go to nice restaurants. They want to have a 3,500 square foot home, particularly if they have 4 kids. They don't want to have 4 kids. They only want to have 2 kids. And both want to have careers. And they want to have nice stuff and 2 cars and a nice home. They don't want to be stuck in the 60s. So the reason we have 2 income households is not because wages are down, it's because wages are up. The reality is women can go out now and make a good living. 1960s, they had very few opportunities, even if they wanted to go out into the workforce. Workforce was not taking women. There weren't enough jobs, and they weren't interested in women. There was clear discrimination. That's changed. Women have become more ambitious, and then workplaces have opened up. So as we become richer, not poorer, richer, more people are working. And that makes them, as a household, even richer. But of course, expenses have gone up as well. But expenses have gone up not because we're maintaining a 1963 lifestyle, but because we're maintaining a completely different, far superior materially lifestyle. And spiritually, by the way, because a woman working is spiritually better than a woman not working. Or a woman getting an education or pursuing her passion is far superior than a woman not doing that spiritually. Then we are living at a much better materially and spiritual way of life. Nostalgia, I mean, if you want to have nostalgia for the spirit of the 19th century, for the sense of life of the 19th century, for the music and novels of the 19th century, I'm with you. For the intellectual rigor and passion and interest of a very small class of people, granted, but of the Enlightenment, of the Founding Fathers, yeah, I'm with you. But from a material perspective, I will say it again, over and over again, and again, if you're a woman, if you're black, if you're a minority of any kind, if you're gay, it's never been better to be alive than right now. If you're a trad man, I feel sorry for you, because the reality is that history is going to leave you way behind. Unless, the authoritarians come about and impose a trad life on us. Most of us do not want a trad life. We want a 21st century life. In that sense, we have even socially better than we were. All right, so much for the nonsense. And again, it's not a left or right issue. It's on both left and right. They both think this, and just generally people think this. It's crazy. All right. Let me do my reminder. We have a goal for every hour of the show. We're almost half an hour into the show. We're not even scraping the surface of the first our goal. So please consider doing the super chats. $20. The nice thing about super chats is I know many of you have questions for me, or want to challenge me, or think I'm completely wrong about something. The super chat is a great way to get your voice heard. And the thousands of people who listen and watch the show will actually hear it, because I will read every single super chat, no matter what you write in it. So, and I do. I answer all the questions. I read all the super chats. Sometimes it slips into the next show. Not today. I don't think we'll have that many. But, I read them all. So come and participate. Engage. I know I see a lot of comments on the comments after the videos about things people disagree with me. I wish they'd come on the show and tell me and ask questions and challenge me on the question. We get a few. But come on the show. I love to answer the crazy stuff that you guys think. I love to respond to it. Somebody's writing about Ayn Rand being Jewish. Ask me about that. And what I think about being Jewish generally. Ask me about it. That'd be cool. All right. So another set of mythologies that exists out there, and a lot of what we do in the show is talk about kind of the BS that goes for commentary and news out there in the world. Another set of mythologies, we talked yesterday about like the complete distortion of history and how people are radicalized by some of the most stupid stuff there is. Super chat me. Where's Gnub? I don't know who Gnub is. Anyway, So one of those that I saw yesterday, I was going to comment on it yesterday, but we ran out of time. One of those was One of those is a headline I read, and this is the headline. White fertility collapsed. The rest of the planet didn't. Now, I had to scratch my head quite a bit on that one. White fertility. First of all, it's just bizarre to me that people think in terms of whiteness. I don't know what that means. I don't really care. Why should I care if white fertility collapsed? Why do I care about white people? Who the F are white people? What is white people? What does it even mean? I mean, the amount of, what's it called, mel or something in your skin, that determines whether you're white or not. Why is that important? How does that determine anything? How is that relevant for anything? I really do, and I know many of you will be insulted by this, and they'll be, the comment section will just go nuts over this. But I can't wait for the day when, we're all mutts. Where you can't differentiate us. There's no line, right? I mean, people who are really, really dark have now become, less dark, and people who are really, really light have become less light, and we're all basically the same from an insignificant perspective of the color of our skin. Maybe we'll then focus on something else. I don't know. The shape of our eyebrows. I'm sure they will, because racists won't give up. They won't give up. They'll find other distinguishing characteristics. Who the hell cares? Race doesn't exist. It's a complete social construct. It's a made-up thing, really, from the late 18th century and into the 19th century. Human beings exist. Individual human beings. And of all the characteristics one can attribute to individual human beings, the skin color seems to me to be the least important, the least significant, the least meaningful. So the first thing that struck me in the headline is white. Who cares? Second, it's just false. It's true, white fertility has collapsed. But then the second part is the rest of the world didn't. That's just completely, utterly, unbelievably false. The article says, the generation now starting school is the first in recorded history that will grow up on a planet where people of European descent are a shrinking global minority. I mean, people of European descent have always been a minority. And yes, they're shrinking, but so is everybody else. Have you seen birth rates in Asia? Like, have you seen the birth rates in South Korea? South Koreans are disappearing faster than Europeans. Japanese? Have you seen the birth rates in China? I mean, Asians, East Asians, are disappearing. Even in India, which has had relatively very high birth rates. Their birth rates are collapsing. They're not, way down there below a baseline yet. But if you look, Italy is at 1.25 children per woman. I mean, South Korea and Japan would kill for 1.24. Spain, 1.23. Germany, 1.36. Remember, 2.1 is replacement. Poland, 1.26. Canada, 1.33. Australia, 1.58. Even the U.S. non-Hispanic white rate is only 1.64. Yeah. Meanwhile, Turkey is 1.99. But here's the thing. The headline didn't say that fertility in other countries, cultures, parts of the world was it was higher than in Europe. That's not what the headline said. It said fertility is collapsing. Well, fertility is collapsing in Turkey. It used to be 3, 4, 5. It's now only 2. And guess what direction that's heading? Down. Egypt is 2.9, down from like 6. Nigeria is 5.2, down from like 8. Pakistan is 3.4, down from like 6. Indonesia 2.2, down from like 4, 5. And most sub-Saharan Africa remains above 4, down from above 8. The world's fertility is collapsing. And the reality is, this was a really interesting data point that I didn't realize, but it's true. Who do you think has more kids in America today? Poor people or rich people? Put aside race, because that's unimportant. But poor people or rich people, who has more kids? Who has more kids in Europe, in European countries? Poor people or rich people? The answer is rich people. Rich people having more kids than poor people. Partially because with all the opportunities that are available, rich people can afford to have two family incomes and to pay for childcare and for an SUV and for a big house. Poor people have fewer kids because they can't afford the childcare. The mother still has to work, but they can't afford the childcare, and therefore they had fewer kids. So you're much more likely to see in the US 3 kids in a family that is relatively wealthy than you are in a family that's poor. And my guess is that you will start seeing that on a national basis. Poor countries, their fertility rates are going to collapse. Now, I know these people don't care about poor and rich, they care about skin color. It happens that the poor countries also have different skin colors than whites, so the whites tend to be richer, at least for now. So, what you're getting is, complete change. The fertility is going to change. The dynamics of fertility are changing dramatically. To a large extent, and I'd say overwhelmingly, because women have opportunity costs. They have other options. They have alternatives. They don't have to stay home and have kids, 4, 5, 6, 7. They can actually go study at university. They can go work and make money and become less dependent on a man. They can marry later and have maybe 2 kids or 1 kid or no kids at all and live a fulfilled life. I know some of you think that's impossible. But in reality, it's very possible. So, the reality is that birth rates are going down all over the world. I expect them to go down for a long time, for decades to come, as poor countries become richer, as women in poor countries gain rights and gain the opportunity to go out and actually work, as the opportunity cost of not working, is just ridiculous. So they work because, again, of the independence and the pleasure that brings them. And then what I expect will happen is as people become richer and they have live-in robots to do a lot of the day-to-day stuff that needs to get done, and maybe they have AI tutors for their kids, and who knows? We become really, really rich. We'll start having more kids, and I think rich people will lead that effort. We'll have more kids. I mean, isn't it like the guy who has the most kids right now is Elon Musk, right? He has 13, 14 kids, and it's fascinating to me that the trad whatever don't know what to do with Elon Musk, because on one hand he's having a lot of kids. That's good. We love kids. We want there to be and they're mostly white kids. But he's doing it in this unconventional way by sleeping with lots and lots of different women who will end up raising the kids by themselves. And the trad guys are like, oh, that's wrong. That's somehow all wrong. But he's a guy, so it's okay, maybe. Here's the thing, though. The thing that really upsets them is not fertility rates are really collapsing. It's not even the white fertility rates are collapsing. What really upsets them is immigration. Continuation of the story, this is Mario Nafal on Twitter. Lay on top of the largest sustained migration in human history. Between 2000 and 2025, roughly 110 million people moved from the global south to the north, North America, Europe, and Australia, with UN projections showing another 200 to 300 million by mid-century. No previous empire, no previous century has ever been seen such population movements on this scale. Yeah, I mean, it's not that long ago that the entire human population, not that long ago at all, was 500 million people. So I don't know if they mean that in terms of migration as a percentage of the total population, or they mean that as a sheer number. Clearly, as a sheer number, it's never been seen before because there's never been this many people before. And they say the result is already visible in every major Western city. Native children are minorities today in the public schools of London, Paris, Amsterdam, Stockholm, Toronto, Sydney, and most large American metros. The rest of the West is simply next in line. By 2040, 2050, the native-born European descent will be minorities in the under 30 age group in every single Western country without exception. There is no longer a national story. It is the biggest demographic turnover the world has ever witnessed. I somehow doubt this is true, completely doubt this is true. Happening in one human lifetime, driven by fertility differentials. No government is ever reversed, and migration flows, no democracy has ever stopped once they reach a critical mass. I mean, there's so much BS there, partially because the world has never been this rich, never been this prosperous, never been this easy to move, never been this easy to communicate, never been this easy to produce, never lived this long. Yeah, everything that happens from now on is going to be different than what's happened in history, because we are dramatically different than anything that's happened in history. So, yeah, here's the headline. I think it was the same day, right? A little later on the same day. And this one was retweeted. I think they were both retweeted by Elon Musk, but this one was definitely retweeted by Elon Musk. White nations. It used to be crude and uncouth to even talk this way. And now it's like, phew. White nations in perfect sync. The replacement is no longer a theory. Again, Mario Nafaz goes on, in what statisticians are labeling the most coordinated demographic event ever recorded. Coordinated, who's exactly coordinating this? Every single major white Western country has since early 1990s simultaneously slashed native birth rates below replacement. That's right. I mean, the government basically had a one-child policy in the West. They slashed. Every culture slashed. It's from the top down, slashed birth rates. It's so, this is, I mean, he considers himself a journalist. This is such garbage reporting. Nobody slashed birth rates. Birth rates went down. Not because anybody decided they should go down, but because individuals made decisions about their own lives. And you see, but when you don't think about individuals, when you can only think about groups, only think about nations, only think about races, only think in terms of collectives, tribes, then birth rates were slashed. But no, individuals made decisions in their own context of their own lives that led to lower birth rates. Okay, who cares? Simultaneously slashed native birth rates. Somebody slashed native birth rates below replacement while importing. I love that word. Importing. We brought them in. We bought them like slaves. Importing third world migration at levels that now drive 80 to 100% of their population growth. Census bureaus from Washington to Warsaw are spilling the same terrifying numbers. Foreign-born shares have doubled, tripled, the worst in just one generation. Oh my God, the world is going to end. Sweden, 19%, Germany, 20%, Canada pushing 30%, France and the UK on the same trajectory. The pattern is identical, the timing eerily aligned. There's a conspiracy here. There has to be. It's all planned. It's the World Economic Forum, I think. Even Iceland has got now 23.1% foreign-born. Iceland will never be the same. That white ice and the white skin that people have was attuned. People were attuned with nature. And now there'll be brown skin on ice, on white snow. I don't know if that's allowed. That's all wrong. It goes against nature. It goes against the harmony, whatever. Aging boomers, collapsing pensions, corporate demand for endless growth, I love that. And a post-1945 legal framework weaponized to make restrictive possible, radioactive. No single phone call was ever needed. The incentives locked in, the media narrative locked in, the NGOs and courts locked in. Dissent was simply labeled hate until the numbers became undeniable. No differentiation here between Islamist migration, dedicated to turning Europe into an Islamist caliphate, and just plain old people migrating for economic reasons, which is wonderful. Yeah, some migration is bad. If the migrants are coming in order to change you, that's bad. But if the migrants are coming to change themselves, that's good. But you can't differentiate those, because what matters really to these people is skin color. Skin color. I mean, if Mariana Faz is worried about Africa having high birth rates, I've got a solution for him. He should advocate for women to be educated, for feminist emancipation, and birth rates in Africa will go down. It happens everywhere. Everywhere. Now, there's an issue about people not having kids and not getting married. I think people are missing out by doing so. But that's a different conversation worth having about the value of marriage and the value of having kids. And, you know, the lack of meaning in the modern world. And, you know, it's a funny thing is how much I find myself on these shows defending the modern world when I'm such a big critic of it. Because the criticisms I hear are so off base, are so misaligned with reality, are so, you know, unconnected to what's really going on and what the real problems are, that I find myself constantly defending the status quo. I don't want the status quo. I want to blow up the status quo. But not to go backwards to 1220, but to go forwards to 2200. Not to reject the Enlightenment and embrace a Christian theocracy, as a white Christian theocracy, as most of these people do. But because I want to go forward to fully embrace the Enlightenment, fully embrace reason, fully embrace self-interest, fully embrace capitalism. And then see what individuals choose to do with their life. Have kids, not have kids. Buy a big house, buy a small house. Work, stay home, get married, not get married. I want people to have choices. Choices in the best possible world. In a world where they have many, many, many good choices. Not in the world in which we live where, you know, a lot of crappy choices, a lot of choices dictated from above by governments, and a lot of, you know, garbage analysis and commentary by people who call themselves intellectuals. All right, we are approaching the end of the first hour. We're still short in terms of our goals. So if you would like to support the show, see it grow, and if you would like to just value for the content you're receiving, jump in with a sticker, any amount, with a question. Questions, $20, $50 questions are particularly appreciated. All right, let us continue with this with this discussion, because the next story I have is about talent and immigration. You know, there's a story today, a post today on the American Enterprise Institute's website talking about immigration and the reality that if you look at today's economy is driven by a relatively small set of individuals who are pushing forward. Economic growth today is dependent on a few industries, mainly in Silicon Valley, that are pushing things forward. Chip makers, things like chip makers, you know, designers, you know, AI programmers, you know, this is in research groups. Technology, this is where things are being pushed and where economic growth manifests itself. If you think about that, you know, you need to be high skilled for that. To keep pushing the frontiers of innovation, the frontiers of science, the frontiers of engineering, the frontiers of AI and everything that it implies. And even when it comes to national security, if you constantly want to combat the latest generation of drones, the latest generation of AI, the latest generation of electronic interference, you need smart people. You need a lot of smart people. You need people with extraordinary abilities. It's the kind of cognitive abilities that maybe 1 in 1,000 people have. That would make about 164,000 Americans eligible. And let's say out of those, maybe 100,000 are actually going to go into these areas and fields and actually manifest this. 100,000. That's it. 100,000 people are going to drive the U.S. economy? I mean, there's just not enough Americans. Now, the way we've done this in the past is no problem. We suck into America the best, the smartest, the most able, the most hardworking people in the world. We bring them to this country from everywhere. Indeed, China has played a huge role in this. You know, 5 Asian countries, India, China, South Korea, Japan, and Philippines, account for over 38% of the growth in U.S. software developers, 25% of the increase in scientists and engineers, 21% in the growth of physicians between 1990 and 1919. So we would have significantly less software engineers, scientists, physicians, if we hadn't brought people in from those 5 Asian countries. In 2019, we had 400,000 Chinese students studying in American universities. That was more than a third of all international students in America. Now that is declining significantly. And it's going to decline even more under the, Trump administration. I mean, when Meta launched its superintelligence lab, it hired 11 researchers, 11 people into the superintelligence lab. These are the best of the best in AI. All of them, all 11, every single one of them was an immigrant. 7 of the 11 were from China. Indeed, 1/3 of the world's top AI scientists, researchers, are Chinese. And most of those work in the United States. So if you cut people off, if you don't accept Chinese immigration, these people stay in China and all the talent stays in China. It doesn't come here. Does that benefit the United States? But we stay white and poor and maybe occupied by the greater Chinese empire one day because they, they sucked up all the talent. We didn't. We're trying to restrict immigration. We're trying to restrict immigration from everywhere. We're trying to restrict immigration of talented people, of exceptional people. We're trying to restrict immigration, in particular, of Chinese. And it's nuts. It is completely nuts. It's insane. Now, yeah, we've got some security issues with China, and you have to vet these people, and you have to watch out for them. But it's worth it. A few of them will be spies. We'll survive. We'll thrive. Some of those European scientists we brought in after World War II who helped build our atomic bombs and our hydrogen bombs and stuff turned out to be spies too. All right? We still beat the Soviets. We still did better. And part of why we beat the Soviets, part of why we beat communism, part of why we're richer than China, part of why we're still the most successful country in the world is because we've been open to immigrants, wide open to immigrants. And now we view immigrants as a pest, as diluting our whiteness, as making us poorer, as making us more violent. All untrue, but doesn't matter. Statistics, don't let statistics ever interfere with, don't let facts, don't let reality ever interfere with people's ideology out there. I mean, our good friend Miller in the Trump administration says migrants is just avatars of the average characteristics of their own home country. That's just not true. Immigrants are individuals. Some of them are bad. Some of them are bad. And we should deal with them, deport them, put them in prison. But when they come here, if we let them, if we encourage them, and mainly if we just don't give them handouts, they don't become images of what they were back then. I mean, the best example of this are Indians. I mean, Miller claims, to quote Miller, that they recreate the conditions and terrors of their broken homelands. Look at Indians. India is a poor country with a lower GDP per capita than Jamaica, Guatemala, or South Africa. Very poor country. Not hygienic, not a pleasant place. And yet, Indians come to America. They become super, super successful. They have a median household income way above the American average. Even white American average. They are way overrepresented when it comes to CEOs at elite colleges. And yet Indians in India have arranged marriages, and they're tribal, and they're, they have a caste system. They're untouchables. I mean, it's completely caste-driven. They come to America, and they accept America as it is. And all those traditions, all those bad stuff, it breaks away. It dissolves. It goes away within one, maybe 2 generations. It's all gone. But think about how many of the leading CEOs in America today are Indian? How many of Indians, children of Indian immigrants, are in elite colleges? Now, it's true that the people who immigrate from India to the United States are not random. They're the people who have the ambition, the wherewithal to immigrate to America. They have above average drive. They're more conscientious. They're more ambitious. They want to be in America. They don't want to be in India anymore. And that's true of almost all immigrants. I mean, the idea of keeping immigrants out, particularly successful Indian immigrants out, is barbaric. American whites who want to keep Indians out of America are Neanderthals. It's barbaric. It's placing an essential on your skin color. Or they're just cowards. Really, this is it. They're afraid of the competition. They're afraid of beaten for their job by somebody who doesn't look like them, who's going to make more money than them, who's going to be more successful than them. Ooh, Fred's an electrician. He doesn't want competition from Indian electricians. They might actually be better at their jobs than Fred. They might make more money than Fred. They might get their kids into Harvard easier than Fred gets his kids into Harvard. So yeah, immigration, birth rates, nostalgia for some distant past is so much driven by a xenophobia, a racism, a kind of a barbaric, longing for some distant place that never really existed. And it's driven more than anything by fear. It's driven by Luddites who don't want their life challenged, don't want their income challenged, don't want their jobs challenged, don't want their culture challenged. It's the culture, they tell me. Well, I mean, if you believe your culture is so good, as we used to believe in this country, then we assimilate everybody. They adapt to our culture. We don't adapt to theirs. Again, they're cowards. They're afraid. They actually don't believe in American culture. They don't believe the American culture is strong. They don't believe the American culture is resilient. And maybe elements of American culture are not. Maybe that part of the culture that involves sitting around on your sofa, drinking beer, watching TV, skimping on work, skimping on education, skimping on ambition, relying on welfare. Maybe that part of the American culture needs to die. And maybe some boost of some energy from migrants who will compete with you. But the part of American culture, the independence, the don't step on me, the go get them, the wealth creation, including the sports and everything else. If we're so confident that that's good, and it is good, I think, then the immigrants will just assimilate into it. The Jews who came in the late 19th century, and the Irish and the Italians, the Eastern Europeans and the Russians who came here, they didn't have a similar culture to what America had in the 19th century. They learned. They changed. Within a couple of generations, they were Americans just like anybody else. So what is it you're afraid of? That they have a different color skin? I don't have hostility towards Americans. I love Americans. I am an American. God. I have hostility towards anybody of any skin color, any nationality that believes in stagnation. I have hostility towards anybody of any skin color who evaluates other people based on their skin color or their nation of origin. I have hostility towards anybody of any skin color who's a tribalist and a collectivist. And the thing is about America and Americans that I love. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Here's the question, right? Are you Jewish? There's the question. So yes, Fred is not just afraid of immigrants that might change his culture, but he's also afraid of Jews. Or he just hates Jews. Or he just thinks we run the world and are trying to destroy him. Good, I'm glad he's afraid. He should be afraid. America that I love is an America of individualism, an America of individuals, an America of ambition, an America of achievement. An America of nothing, no aim is impossible. No great achievement is out of reach. An America that embraces people from anywhere in the world as individuals and treats them the way they deserve. If they're productive, if they're good human beings, treats them well. If they're criminals, put them in jail or send them packing. That's the America worth saving. That's the America worth protecting. Yeah, here it is. Here's the anti-Semitism coming through. Do Jewish people, and I'm reading this in the chat just because you have to confront some of these straight on. Do Jewish people advocate for immigrants as a means of protecting themselves as they have done poorly in countries that are ethnically homogeneous? Really? Jews in England have done phenomenally well. England's used to be fairly homogeneous, and in the 19th century, Jews did amazingly well in England. Jews did amazingly well in Germany. Amazingly well. In ethnically homogeneous Germany, Jews did better than Germans. Maybe that's why they were hated so much. Jews have done everywhere well, whether they have been in homogeneous society or heterogeneous societies. I mean, just look at America. Have Jews done well in America because people came in who are less good? Or did Jews do well in America because they out-educated, out-competed, out-thought many of the non-Jews? Because they were more American than many Americans. See, this is the thing. People like Fred are being left behind. They're not succeeding. The Indians are doing better than them. The Jews have done better than them for generations now. Those immigrants outcompete them, do better, live better lives. And Fred is upset. Fred is upset. I advocate for freedom. Immigration is just an aspect of freedom. I advocate for Americans' right to employ anybody he wants to. It's none of the government's business. If that's a Mexican, or if that's a Guatemalan, as long as they're not a threat, as long as they don't violate people's rights, I advocate for individuals, individual rights, individualism. I advocate for the America of the 19th century, where people could come from anywhere in the world, and as long as they worked and fed themselves, they thrived. I advocate for immigrants because I love America. And America is the land of individuals of any skin color. Israel is a multicultural state. This is a question. Do you want multiculturalism in Israel? Israel is one of the most multicultural places on planet Earth. There are Jews in Israel from Morocco, from Yemen, from Iraq, from Uzbekistan, as well as from Russia and from Poland, from France and from Spain, from Ethiopia. There are black Jews, completely black-skinned Jews. There are brown-skinned Jews. You want to tell me about Israel, Fred? Really? You ever been there? How many years have you lived in Israel? I love it when people are going to lecture me about Israel. And 20% of the Israeli population, 20% of the Israeli population, I'm not even counting the West Bank and Gaza, just in Israel, 20% are Arabs. They might be Muslim Arabs or Christian Arabs, but they're Arabs. The reason I am playing around with Fred is because, you say Fred is dumb as a post. I don't think Fred is dumb as a post. I think Fred is typical of what many, many people out there, many young people out there think. Many young people think out there. So, yeah, Israel is, as I said, multicultural place. Israel is a place that has 20% Arabs. Israel is a place that has people from all over the world. The only thing that unites those people, the 80%, is that non-Jews consider them Jews. That's the only thing that unites them. And Israel is the place for Jews to escape to. That's all. And, you know, I'm for that as long as anti-Semitism exists, that Jews have a place to escape to. If Frenchmen were being hunted down, then it's good that there be one country where Frenchmen can go where they won't be hunted down. So that is the value of Israel. America was never an ethnocentric state, and it shouldn't be now. Shouldn't be now. All right, let's do a few of these quickly. First, climate change. I've told you climate change is on the retreat. The environmentalist movement is not having a good time. First, a Trump administration today lowered. This is the kind of stuff that Trump does that is good, that is really good. And this is kind of offsets, all the bad offsets in terms of economics, not in terms of the character of the administration, but offsets in terms of economics, the bad stuff that he does. The Trump administration today lowered fuel economy rules for car makers. So Biden raised them. Now, ideally, they would go to Congress and eliminate them completely. But, you know, lowering them is better than nothing, and lowering them is significant because if you lower them enough, then you get to the point where it doesn't matter to auto companies. Now, I don't know if you know how fuel economy works. They set a standard like 50 miles per gallon, which is what I think the Biden standard was by 20-something, 2030 or 2032. What that means is every car maker, on average, the car that it makes have to be that. So they can make SUVs and pickup trucks that are gas guzzling, where actually American car companies, you know, do very well with those cars. They make a good profit on them. But in order to sell those cars, they have to sell a bunch of small cars that have very, very high gas mileage, or maybe they have to sell a bunch of electric cars in order that on average, they have the 50 miles per gallon. The lower that average is, the fewer electric cars, the fewer small cars American companies can make, which is good. It's good because American companies are not good at making small cars. They never have been. If the market had been allowed to work, if the government had never intervened, I believe, I mean, I can't prove this, and maybe I'm wrong, but I believe that what would have happened is instead of the American car companies going bankrupt every decade, American car companies would have specialized in the cars that they have a comparative advantage in. Big cars, gas-guzzling cars, pickup trucks, SUVs, station wagons, and just big cars. And they would have left the small cars to the Japanese. And there would have been a division of labor. There's absolutely no reason for Ford and GE, General Motors, to be making little cars that they can't make any money on. They can't make any money on. And that, you know, they don't make any sense for them. They're not particularly good at building. They should build the stuff they're good at. They should specialize. But the gas mileage rules, the fuel economy rules, force auto companies to make small cars. Trump lowering this allows for a little bit more specialization. Again, eliminating it would let the car industry, in a sense, focus on specialization. I mean, BMW should make, you know, a Model 3 little sports sedans. Mercedes should make luxury cars. Toyota and those guys should make small family cars. There should be a division of labor. And the Chinese should make electric cars. So this is great. Of course, the environmentalists and the climate change people are going nuts because these standards are being lowered, which means more gas guzzling, which means more, more, I guess, emissions. The auto companies are loving it. General Motors, Ford today came out with a statement. Stellantis, who owns Chrysler, really like this. So this was a very pro-auto company move, but it's pro-everybody move. This is a pro-everybody move. It's a pro-rights, pro-freedom move. The second story I found, well, this was really interesting and expected, but last year there was a study published, an economic study, published in Nature magazine. Nature, of course, is not an economic magazine, but it's a science magazine, and the study was about the economic consequence of climate change. It was an economic paper, and it basically said that climate change was going to be a disaster. The research predicted decline of 62% in world output because of climate change by 2100. By 2100, 62%. Now, the study was criticized almost immediately. People challenged them. And it turned out, this is funny. It's funny because this paper would have never been published in an economics magazine, because this is such a stupid error that people would have caught it very quickly. It turns out that one outlier, one country outlier in the data, Uzbekistan, that outlier explains the entire 62% decline. If you take Uzbekistan out of the data, the decline is only 23%. And of course, that is such an amateur mistake. That is such a stupid mistake in data analysis that the 23% is bogus, probably, as well. Of course, other people, you could challenge this paper in 100 different ways, but the reality is that Nature has retracted the paper, which is rare. The paper now, if you click on it, if you click on the paper, and this is like a hugely cited paper. The UN climate report cites it, and every climate organization in the world, every anti-fossil fuel group in the world have cited this paper as proof that we need to do something about climate change, because climate change will destroy the economy of the planet. And now, at Nature, when you click on the paper, it says, retracted article. I love it. So climate change is losing politically. It's losing the hearts and minds of people. It's losing, and it's also losing, people are challenging it scientifically. Its consequences scientifically. And there's a lot more criticism. If you actually run the numbers, the amount of money to be invested in climate change mitigation today, if you run the numbers properly, is zero. Because of how much wealthier we will be if we don't mitigate climate change. Climate change mitigation is unbelievably expensive. And if you take that into account, then we're actually better off suffering whatever economic damage happens because we're so much richer, and we can deal with whatever problems we have later when we're richer. But you're never going to see a paper like that published in Nature, but they do exist out there in the economic literature in different places. All right, quickly on Hegseth, two stories today on Hegseth. One is the Department of Defense came back with its conclusions about, you remember, Hegseth texting with other people about the operation in Yemen months ago when the U.S. bombed the Houthis. And basically, the report says, the Secretary sent non-public Department of Defense information identifying the quantity and strike times of manned U.S. aircraft over hostile territory, over an unapproved, unsecure network, approximately 2 to 4 hours before the execution of those strikes, using a personal cell phone to conduct official business and send non-public DoD information through signal risks, potential compromises of sensitive Department of Defense information, which could cause harm to defense of department personnel and mission objectives. In other words, Hegseth actions could have endangered U.S. pilots and U.S. goals for the mission. Hegseth does not have the power to declassify. You can't just by tweeting it make it declassified. What's clear here is that, Hegseth acted completely inappropriately during this, and that this, for any other person, would have been a reason to dismiss. Hegseth, on the other hand, wrote, "No classified information, total exoneration, case closed." Untrue. Untrue. The Inspector General found that he, again, I read it to you, identified, non-public Department of Defense information. That's classified information. Strike times, strike weapons, classified information. You can read the report yourself. And yet he will not be fired. He will not be fired. The report actually states, if this information had fallen into the hands of U.S. adversaries, Houthi forces might have been able to counter U.S. forces or reposition personnel and assets to avoid planned U.S. strikes. Even though these events did not ultimately occur, the Secretary's actions created a risk to operational security that could have resulted in failed U.S. mission objectives and potential harm to U.S. pilots. This is a fireable offense. He should be fired for this. Now, of course, the second story is about the bombing of the boats. The admiral who approved that, Hegseth claims he went to the bathroom and wasn't in the room when that happened. You love a commander, a senior officer, the guy in charge of things, blaming subordinates and claiming he was out peeing while the decisions were made to cover his ass. I mean, Hegseth is just pathetic. Just pathetic. Just pathetic. Should be fired for both of those things. For not taking responsibility for the boat strike. I mean, the boat strikes are illegal anyway. They should all be fired for that. Trump should be impeached for that. And he should be fired for revealing or discussing classified information over an unsecured network. Any other defense chairman, chief, head of the Defense Department, Secretary of War would have been fired. Finally, I saw this story. This was kind of interesting and fits into what we do here. It turns out that Americans are paying a lot less attention to the news than they used to. In 2016, which was the first year, Pew ran the survey asking Americans if they're likely to follow the news closely. 51% of Americans said yes. Today, it's 36%. So Americans this is true of Democrats, true of Republicans. People are, listening to the news, following the news, tracking the news a lot less. A lot of it has to do with the fact that they are convinced now that the news, as reported by mainstream media, but as well as the non-mainstream media, is just unreliable, and just it's not worth it. It's what I tell you all the time: don't listen to news, don't keep track of it. Just come to Yaron Brook Show for our daily news shows, and you'll get everything you need to know. There's nothing in the news right now that I don't cover that you need to know. And if I don't catch it today, I'll catch it tomorrow. So this saves you. So I guess having news shows like this is part of the 51% going to 36%. I do this so you don't have to follow the news closely. Maybe there seems to be a market for this. Maybe not for my particular views about the news, maybe not for my particular opinions, but for condensing the news and not having to follow it as closely as maybe people once used to would be good. And then finally, this is just a funny thing. I saw this video of Chrissy Noem yesterday. So you know how Pam Bondi in the past has said that President Trump has saved 258 million lives by stopping the flow of fentanyl into the United States. 258 million lives. Now, note, one, that we haven't stopped the flow of fentanyl into the United States, it's still flowing in. But secondly, the total number of overdoses in the United States is 70,000. 70,000. How are you going to save 258 million lives? That assumes all of us would take fentanyl, if not for Donald Trump. And Donald Trump has prevented all of us from taking fentanyl. And she says this, Pam Bondi, who is an intelligent woman. I mean, she has to be, because she's a head of the Justice Department. You have to be intelligent to do that. No. 258 million. Anyway, Trump on Monday said that he has saved 300 million people. He said on Monday that 300 million people have died last year from drugs. 300 million people. Wow, that would empty America. That would make America very, very thin if 300 million people had died. I mean, Fred would like that if the people who had died were all of non-white skin color and whites could be a majority again. Ooh. Maybe we can get the right drugs into the right hands. We could do that. Well, Chrissy Noem today, yesterday when during the day before, whenever the cabinet meeting was, she said, she says this to Trump, you've saved hundreds of millions of lives with the cocaine you've blown up in the Caribbean. Cocaine that was not coming to America, by the way. Cocaine that was not coming to America. Fred, I'm not labeling you anything. I'm just identifying your views from what you have said. You're worried about white Americans on track to becoming minority. You don't like that. I was just suggesting a path to make them a majority again, because that's what you care about. That's what's important to you. That matters to you. Now, that is racist that it matters to you. That is absolutely 100% racist. That's just a fact. That's just a definition of racism. But put that aside. I mean, I'm just trying to help you out here. Give you a way to achieve your goal. I know, people don't like to be called racists. And, and they reflect back to when the left called people racist when they weren't racist. But this is the problem. Sometimes people are racist. Sometimes people say things that are racist. And by saying things that are racist, they're racist. They are racist by saying things. So he's a racist. In an ideal world, in a world with no anti-Semitism, I don't care who lives in Israel. There's no anti-Americanism. There's no anti-whiteness. There's no persecution of white people going on in most of the world. Maybe in a few places, a little bit in South Africa, but generally no. So you don't need, if you're really worried about your whiteness, there are plenty of other countries you can escape to and, create your little white enclaves or whatever. So I have no worry about whites being here. No, I have no problem with skin color being the dominant in terms of anything. I would like to see Americans be the majority of people in America. But then I think anybody should be able to become an American. All right, guys, that is the news and commentary on the news for this Thursday, December 4th. And now is the point where we shift to your super chats. We have a few. We could still use more. And the more super chats, the more I get to talk about things you want to talk about. I mean, I'm not going to respond to Fred anymore. So Fred can come in. Yeah, Israel is a Jewish enclave because Jews are being, I'll respond to this, and then I'm stopped. Jews are being run down, they're being hunted, they're being killed, they're being discriminated against all over the world, and Israel, there needs to be a Jewish enclave for them to escape to, and that Israel serves that purpose. Whites are not in that situation, and therefore they don't need an enclave. And if they did need an enclave, then America's probably not the right place for them anyway, because they're almost a minority already in America. So they should emigrate to places that maybe are more likely to stay, quote, white. I don't know. You can all go to Denmark or whatever. The reality is America's not Israel. I know that's hard for people to get. America's not surrounded by countries that want to destroy it. America is not occupied by a majority of people who are discriminated against everywhere else in the world they go to. America's not Israel. I mean, it's hard to contemplate that. And not every country is the same. And every country is different. And that's okay for every country to be different. In an ideal world, it wouldn't matter what your skin color is, wouldn't matter what your so-called race is, and it wouldn't matter what your religion is. I mean, one could hope that there would be very few religions anyway. All right. We are going to take super chats. Let me remind you that this show is funded through the support of people like you. If you listen, if you watch, even if you disagree, even if you hate, you are gaining a value from this show. One way to reciprocate is go on Patreon, patreon.com, type in Yaron Brook Show and become a monthly supporter of the Yaron Brook Show. I'm looking, I think now we only need 5 to make till the end of the month, new Patreon subscribers to meet our December 31st goal. So 5. Please, if you're not yet a supporter of the Yaron Brook Show on Patreon, please become one. At $10, you actually get the podcast with no advertising. No advertising. Saves you from all that hassle. And $25, you can join the live AMAs by video. Let me see, what else did I want to say? I'm going to jump in here to the super chats. We'll remind everybody. All right, Alex. Hi, Yaron. I work in video games. You often criticize people who play games in their mother's basement. But do you think the medium can have real artistic value in reevaluating games as a long-term? I'm reevaluating games as a long-term productive career. Oh no, look, I am not anti-computer games. Even if computer games do not have what did you call it? A real artistic value. They have immense entertainment value. They're a lot of fun. Now, I don't play video games, but I love that people have video games and can play video games and get excited about video games and compete on video games. Video games are great. What I criticize is the people who make video games the center of their life and give up on the rest of life in order to play video games. That's what I hate. So, video games are great. There's nothing wrong with them. Could they have artistic value? Maybe. I mean, I don't know, but potentially they could. Absolutely. But in any case, they're fun. They're entertainment. So why not engage in it? Yeah. You know, if you like video games and you enjoy playing them and it's fun to program them, then go ahead and program them. Go ahead and program them. By the way, Alex Media, if you're looking for a software engineer, my son is looking for a job. So let me know. You can write to me if you have any opportunities for him at yaronbrookshow.com. Anybody out there, for I guess a junior software engineer, but with quite a bit of experience now. Worked at Amazon for a while. Not Your Average Algorithm, part 1. Is fascism just socialism with a worse brand? Are the concept of racial hierarchies or hierarchies in general less appealing than egalitarianism to populations saturated with Christianity and altruism? Altruism demands a zero-class societal structure, while Nazism and fascism demand altruistic sacrifice. The essence of the structure they're trying to impose is opposite of the meek shall inherit the earth. So I think you're onto something. Now remember, both demand altruistic sacrifice. Communism demands the sacrifice of the able to the unable. It demands the sacrifice of ability to need. It demands the sacrifice of success to failure. It demands the sacrifice of the rich to the poor. So both communism and Nazism demand sacrifice. But one of the reasons communism is so appealing, it's because it's the same kind of sacrifice that Christianity demands. It's the meek shall inherit the earth, as you say. It's harder for a rich man to pass through the. It's harder for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than a rich man to get into heaven. It's the same kind of sacrifice as Christianity. So communism goes together and socialism go together with Christianity, whereas the kind of sacrifice that Nazism demands is different. It's still sacrifice. And in that sense, it's still Christian. But it's a different kind of sacrifice, more oriented around other types of hierarchy. Hierarchy related to, for example, related to race in some forms of fascism, or related to affinity to a state, sacrifice to the state. Again, very similar to the sacrifice of a Christian to the church or to God. The state just fills in for the church and God. But it's not egalitarian, and there's definitely a strong appeal of egalitarianism in a Christian culture. And we live in way too much of a Christian culture. Robert, positive shows for the win. Ordinary, decent people working hard, living well, learning, creating, producing isn't news. But it's 97% of everything that happens in the world every day, thanks to the positive show. Of course. Fred says, I don't care about Christians' part, but yes, America was vastly majority white before 1965. Yeah. And a much worse place to live. It's so much richer today, to a large extent because of all the immigrants that have come in, as I described earlier. Most of the wealth created is being created by immigrants who've come to this country and made your life as a white person better, richer. Yeah. All right. I think the whole replacement stuff, replacement that people talk about, is just science fiction. Immigrants don't come because, they're encouraged to replace whites. They come because they see opportunities. Indians who migrated to this country, you want to luck out of this country, Fred, that's what you said, did not come here because somebody advocated for them to come and replace whites. They came here because they saw opportunities, and they came here and they created wealth that you benefit from, that everybody benefits from. No matter what your skin color, you benefit from. The United States peaked at around 1965. I wish you had a time machine. It could go back to 1965. I was alive in 1965. You weren't. You have no concept of how much better life is today than 1965. You've been brainwashed by a bunch of ignorant Neanderthal traditionalists who worship the past but have no concept of how much better life is today. Because they don't like certain things, like they're colored people in the streets. But in terms of every objective measure of wealth, of success, of quality of life, of standard of living, of diversity of options, of ability to succeed in life, life is so much better today than it was in 1965. There are a few realms in which it's worse. But the realms that affect the day-to-day lives of Americans, in all of those realms, life is better today than it was in 1965. Catherine, and that has been a theme of this show and today, earlier, and it's been a theme of many of my shows. Yeah. Catherine, why do you hear often that Ayn Rand is only for students and younger people? Is it because she tried to make things understandable? Partially, but I think more than that, because she presented an ideal. She thought the world was black and white. Black and white in terms of good and evil, not in terms of skin color. She thought there were good guys and bad guys. She thought there was truth. And that is viewed as simplistic and juvenile and appeals to adolescents and doesn't appeal to really sophisticated people. Really sophisticated people understand that life is gray and there's no right or wrong and that everything is to be, nobody's really good and nobody's really evil and you can't never know the truth, and that's why. It's ideals. Like capitalism is an ideal. I mean, that is so foreign to the way people think. Lincoln, for comparison on quality of life, my grandpa bought my dad his first computer for $1,800, almost $6,000 inflation adjusted, for 64 kilobytes of RAM. I paid around $400 for a laptop recently that had 64 gigabytes of RAM on Black Friday. Same story with video games. Dad paid $100 in 2025 dollars. So for low quality 16-bit games, I paid half for that 4K graphics. 16-bit video games, I pay half for the 4K graphics. Same with television, software, and list goes on and on. Yeah, I mean, all of those goods are 99% cheaper today. 99.9% cheaper today, if you take into account quality. My first computer was an SE30 Mac. It was $3,000. It was a box with a little color screen in it. It had, can't remember. It had, megabytes. Everything was megabytes. Hard drive was megabytes. I mean, you can't even compare it to what you have today. No, it's kilobytes. Everything was kilobytes. And it's $3,000. I mean, what I could buy for $3,000 today is much, much better than any supercomputer that existed when I bought my first computer. Lincoln also, it was really striking visiting my dad's childhood home. He said it's much smaller and worse than he remembers, since our house now is triple the size. Yeah. 1965. You should all go to 1965. God, the ignorance. But this is the thing. If you listen to Matt Walsh, if you listen to these guys, they constantly tell you the lie. They constantly create this mythology. And they constantly create a mythology. And but this is the mythology Matt Walsh creates. And you buy into it, whether he's a tool or not, you buy into it. It's the Matt Walshes and Nick Fuenteses of the world. It's the Tucker Carlsons of the world, all really from a factual basis, an empirical basis, basically morons. And they know nothing. They understand nothing. They're anti-American, every single one of them. They have no concept of what America is, what America stood for, what the founders actually said, and what they stood for, what their words meant. They want some in 1965 utopia that never existed. Lincoln says 1965 is too modern for Michael Knowles. He wants 965. No, he wanted 1220. 300 years, 250 years later. Don't exaggerate. Christoph, aside from material wealth, isn't the case that government regulations and taxes are worse today and people feel trapped? I think government regulations are worse and taxes are worse. Taxes, I'm not sure. The marginal tax rate in 1965 was much higher. Right? The high marginal tax rates were much higher. Yeah, I mean, there are many ways in which 1965 was better. But they're not the ways in which people are complaining. If people are complaining about, I want to start a business, and in 1965 it was easier for me to start a business than today, I'd say, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, let's fix that. If they were saying, I wish taxes were significantly lower, they were too high in 65, they're too high today, yeah, I'm all for that, absolutely. If they were saying what we want is more economic freedom, and it's not clear. By some dimensions, there's more economic freedom now. By some dimensions, there was more economic freedom in 65. It's tricky how to measure that, right? 1965, the government regulated the price of airline tickets. If you wanted to fly from Miami to New York, you paid a price determined by the government, and it was a very high price, much higher than today. If you wanted to trade stocks, the commission your broker got was dictated by the government in 1965. Trucking was completely regulated. Every aspect of transportation was completely regulated by the government. So in many respects, we're less regulated than 1965. So it's tricky to figure this out. Even in those realms, what was better today or then? Clark. As pessimistic as we all tend to be, I do see objectivism growing online. I think it'll be a real player in the next few decades. I think it will be. I hope so. It's growing, there's no question. And the number of intellectuals is growing, and that's what makes a difference. That's what makes a difference. Why does Harry Binswanger think faster than light? Thinks faster than light sharing of information is possible. Does objectivism have objections to theory of relativity? No. The fact that Harry thinks that is not a position shared by objectivism, and it's not a philosophical position. His position is a scientific one. He has his reasons. I have no idea what they are. But it's not a position in objectivism. Objectivism is the philosophy of Ayn Rand. Ayn Rand had no position on the theory of relativity. Objectivism has no opinion on the theory of relativity. That's not a question of philosophy. It's a question of science. Objectivist scientists might have an opinion, and they might disagree. Kirk or Picard, seen Deep Space Nine, highly recommended. I'm a Kirk guy. I really love the initial Star Trek, but that's partially because I haven't seen a lot of the later Star Treks. Also, I did not see Deep Space Nine, although it's come highly recommended by people I care for. People I respect their opinions, but I haven't seen it. I need to get into it at some point. Lincoln, we live a much better life than that of George Washington, one of the richest men in the colonies, but lost all of his teeth at 30 and died at 67. Absolutely. Lincoln, collapsing white birth rate, my dude. Japan is literally starting fertility visas, and you can buy abandoned homes for under $10K there. Yep. Raphael, hi, Yaron. The corporate presentation went well. Thanks for your advice. I'm glad it went well. Also noticed it's my 3-year anniversary as a YBS member. Cheers to that. Absolutely cheers, Raphael. Thank you. Lincoln, I'm certainly planning on having kids with my current girlfriend and future wife, but not until we're both done with our education in our 30s. Yeah, good for you. John says, ARI YouTube, ice rage versus rule of law. Good. Good. I agree with that. Glad they did a video of that. Jason, one, Washington State is not friendly to vouchers or charter schools. Our Moses Lake School District is on its 4th day of being closed due to a strike. The district lost money in an accounting anomaly, levies didn't pass, and teachers say they want what they used to have and a COLA. The district will go to courts to push teachers back to work. I'd love to stand with a sign saying privatize, read Ayn Rand, but it'd be pointless. Well, you never know if it'd be pointless. People might actually read Ayn Rand because of it. They might say, who is this crazy? What's he doing? Maybe there's something, maybe I should go find out. Is there any reasonable way not to let this crisis go to waste for capitalist cause? Any thoughts for the school district and teachers union? No, I mean, not really. I don't know how you take advantage of the crisis other than to say these kind of things don't happen in private education. Maybe one school's teachers strike, and then you just shift your teachers to your students to another school. You don't get teacher strikes if everything was private. So it's an opportunity to make the case for privatization, accepting the fact that only a few people will even have an open ear to it. P. Gupta, Fred's question, so not all his questions are free. I don't know what that means. Would you tolerate a non-Jewish majority in Israel? I mean, again, when anti-Semitism doesn't exist, then yes, I don't care about being Jewish. I don't care about Israel being Jewish or not. The only reason Israel needs to have a Jewish majority right now is because there is an existential risk to people who are perceived to be Jewish by the world. If there was a perceived risk, physical risk, pogroms against white people, then those people, I mean, those people should, have every right to gang together to protect themselves. But that's not the case. And if you can't tell the difference between those two, then you're just evading. You're not trying, right? You're not trying. So you can take a simplistic say, oh, it's no. Or you can actually think about what my answer actually means and what my actual answer is. It's not bullshit. There's anti-Semitism everywhere in the world. Jews are persecuted everywhere in the world, even in America. It's becoming more anti-Semitic. I would love a world in which there's no Israel, that Israel is never created. Because a world where Israel was never created is a world where the Dreyfus trial never happens. It's a world where there's no massive anti-Semitism in Europe. It's a world where Hitler doesn't kill 6 million Jews. It's a world where Jews are not persecuted in Iraq and in Morocco and in Yemen and in all these other countries and kicked out. It's a better world where Jews just assimilate into the population. I'm all for that. I have no affinity to a Jewish state except, and this is where people can't think. This is the amazing part, is they just can't actually hold an argument, hold an actual argument being made, except in a world in which they're persecuted, they need somewhere to escape to. Have Jews ever done any persecuting? No, certainly in the Old Testament, yeah, a lot of persecuting. It was awful. But since then, very little. Primarily because they've had no political power to do it. So again, it's all collectivism with you. All you can think of is this group and that group and that group, and I don't care. There are bad people who are Jewish. There are good people who are Jewish. There are bad people who are white. There are good people who are white. There are bad people who are black. There are good people who are black. There are bad people who are Indian. There are good people who are Indian. Tell me about Jewish persecution. The Jews persecuting who? Who exactly have they persecuted? And don't tell me Palestinians, because that'll show how ignorant you are of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. But, did they persecute the Germans? The Jews persecute the Germans? They persecute the English? Did they persecute the Romans, the Greeks? Who did they persecute? The Babylonians? Who did they persecute exactly? As a people. Oh, they persecuted ethnic Russians. All right, wipe this guy out. He's a complete nutcase. He doesn't know history. He doesn't know facts. He is just another run-of-the-mill anti-Semite. During the Bolshevik Revolution, Jews didn't persecute anybody. Communists persecuted people. Some of those communists, a minority, were Jewish. So what? White people persecuted the majority of Russians, ethnic Russians, were persecuted by white people because most of the communists were white. Oh, God. So pathetic. So pathetic. Again, you know, brainwashed by people who don't know history, and people who don't know, anything about, their own history, about European history, about Jewish history, and then come on and they pretend that like they're experts. They know stuff. Because what? Because they watched a YouTube video by some racist creep. They've watched, essay. And there's a reason I'm engaging with Fred. There's a reason, because, if he comes back, I'll probably just block him. Because so many people out there are like this. So many people out there are convinced of their own knowledge because they've watched some video by some creep out there, by some white nationalist, by some white supremacist. And what they do is they ask you a question, you give them an answer, they can't follow the argument, either because they don't want to, not because they're not capable of. They're smart enough to follow it. They don't want to. It would actually require an argument. They actually require following. They don't want to follow it. They don't want to follow it. I don't silence opposition. I silence useless people who refuse to think, who refuse to confront evidence when presented with it. I silence people who just repeat the same thing over and over again, who have nothing to add to the conversation, and who are fundamentally disruptive as a consequence. That's who I silence. I don't silence people who disagree with me. Lots of people disagree with me on here. But if you're not willing to engage with evidence, if you're not willing to engage with facts, if you can't follow an argument because following the argument would upset your worldview too much, then you're useless to me. Why would I not block you? What did Rush Limbaugh used to say about, about his audience and taking questions? Is the only purpose of it is to make him look good. Yeah, I mean, I'm with Rush. I made an argument. You refused to listen to it. And that's why you're being removed. All right, Lincoln, if I want an SUV Ford all the way, if I want a non-luxury sedan, I'm going Toyota. I have a Lexus SUV. It's a wonderful automobile. So if you want a big SUV, maybe, but even the big Lexus SUV is pretty cool. Matt, this administration has made men such as Hegseth. Yeah, I mean, they took a nobody and made him into something. All right, that is it for today. Oh, we got a question coming in from Avilas. What did I want to remind you? Yeah, I want to remind you of Patreon. I want to remind you that December 31st, we will have a big fundraising event. There'll be the year-end show. We'll be raising a lot of money. I think the goal this year will be $20,000 on the show. So if you would like to contribute like more than $500, which is the max you can do on YouTube, then you can do it on PayPal, and just let me know that you want it to go towards I want you, let me know that you wanted to go towards the year-end show. Lincoln said I had a super chat on Fuentes. I didn't see it. I'm looking back. I cannot see the one on Fuentes. George Washington. Oh, there it is. Okay, there it is. I don't know how that. I skipped. I skipped down. All right, there it is. A good rule of thumb for your mental health: never listen to anyone who had Nick Fuentes on their show. Yes, that would be a big improvement in people's lives. Avilesk says, how much for your thoughts on an MBA ethics assignment, professor reflection I had to read through? It'd be great content, I promise. So what do you want me to read? I mean, how long is whatever it is you want me to read? That would determine how much, I would charge. It depended how, it's an ethics assignment. So how long is it? It's going to take me 5 minutes to read, 10 minutes to read. Let me know and I'll tell you how much. All right, guys. I will see you tomorrow. Don't forget the December 31st show. 2.5 pages. I don't know, $100 for me to give you my feedback on that. It's like a song, I guess. I will see you guys tomorrow, I guess, same time. Matt says, Coleman Hughes had a great video on a fantasy. Yes, he did. It was a very good, Coleman Hughes does good stuff. I like Coleman Hughes. He's one of the best commentators, podcasters, whatever you want to call them out there, young intellectuals out there. He's one of the best non-objectivist young intellectuals out there. So check out Coleman Hughes. He's very good. Thank you, Matt. All right, guys. See you tomorrow.